Welcome back to the Voice of Rio Grande, where we're talking to our two new psychology faculty members, Kristin Chamberlain and Brian Higley. Hello and welcome to the Voice of Rio Grande. I'm Dr. Donna Mitchell, Dean of the College of Professional and Technical Studies, with my new co-host, Lindley Carey, Interim Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Hello, Lindley.
Hi, Donna. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great.
It is a beautiful day on Rio campus. We have all the students bustling about, and they found their classes, found their classrooms. I love to see the activity and the students so excited about learning. And I'm excited to have a new co-host. So first, I'd like for our listeners to hear a little bit about you and your background and what brought you to Rio.
Okay. Well, like she said, my name is Lindley Carey. I'm from Wellston, Ohio. This is my 6th year on Rio's campus, and I just began the interim dean's position the 12th of July, and I'm enjoying it. It's a lot different than being in the classroom, but I'm still teaching 2 education classes, so I'm still with the students a lot.
And we are so happy to have you as the new dean. I know you've done some great things already, and
Thank you.
It's great to have a colleague who is actually from my hometown.
Yes,
And
definitely.
we are really fortunate today because we have 2 new psychology faculty members, and I could not be happier about the 2 folks that we were able to hire here at University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College, and that is Kristin Chamberlain and Dr. Brian Higley. So I guess we'll start with you, Kristin. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and what brought you to Rio and what brought you here to teach.
Yeah, so my first undergraduate degree actually is from the University of Rio Grande. I got a bachelor's in behavioral and social sciences. Some of the best education I was able to get throughout my college experience, and I'm not just saying that because I work here now. After that, I got a master's in counseling from the University of Dayton, and then after that, I worked as a nurse. So I worked as a neonatal intensive care unit nurse and a cardiac critical care nurse, worked as a charge nurse, and I was ready to come back home, which would have been counseling, psychology, back to the mental health field. So I had a little boy named Bodhi who was 5 and a ray of sunshine. And then I started my PhD journey, and I am finally finishing that this semester, which is really exciting. Thanks, Brian. So yeah, my PhD is in counselor education, and I have a focus in and interest in integrated care, so how we take care of people's minds and bodies because they are connected.
That's wonderful. And why did you choose to come back to Rio to teach?
Yeah, for a few reasons, really. I had such a positive experience being taught by full professors, people with PhDs who really expanded my mind and nurtured me. I was still asking these people for recommendation letters 10, 15 years later, so that continuity. So I had such a positive experience here that I wanted to come back and provide a similar experience to our student population. And I adjuncted, I guess that would have been around 2012, and really enjoyed that experience. So here I am.
And we're glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
Brian, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Rio?
Sure, yeah. So I got my undergraduate degree at Baldwin-Wallace College at the time. Now it's Baldwin-Wallace University. Then went down to the University of Florida, go Gators, and got my master's and doctorate. Have been teaching at a bunch of different schools in the past. One of my areas of interest is seeing what's going on at different schools in education. So, and came to Rio because I think our interests overlap. My interests are pretty much summarized by the acronym H2O. I'm really interested in education as help to ourselves and others, 2 O's instead of 2 H's. And so I noticed on the Rio website, it seemed like they were really focused on H2O being helpful to self and others. Talked with a bunch of the people at Rio, and they seemed really enthusiastic about being helpful to self and others, and so I'm just really excited to be here with Kristin and doing what we can to be helpful to our students, helpful to each other, and helpful to the surrounding community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know that we are introducing you to the psychology students, although you've met many of those students already in the classroom. We're having a picnic today to say welcome to our new faculty members and for our students to be able to get a chance to meet each of you and talk to you a little more about your research interests and the direction that you see for our psychology program in the future. What kinds of things would you like to see happen here at Rio with our psychology program and our psychology club, which is very strong?
Oh, me?
Either of you.
Okay. Well,
I went first last time, so
okay,
I'll
I'll go first. Okay, so I've been talking with quite a few students about that very question. I think it's a energizing, exciting question to put to students. Kristin and I have both been talking about how much we want students involved in the direction of the department. And so really the three things that I'm really interested in as a counseling psychologist, as an educator, just as a human being, is helping people to have more life, liberty, and happiness pursuit. You know, it's what I believe is the stated vision of the country, and it's what I think the best organizations do. So really interested in working with everybody here, and having our department be really good at preparing people for life, you know, getting a good job, picking the kinds of people that they want to hang out with, feeling as though that they have a certain amount of psychological freedom, that they're freely choosing, you know, what it is that they want to do, and that they're pursuing happiness in an evidence-based way. I think one of the cool things about psychology is we've done tons of research on what makes people happy. So I really want our department to be at the forefront of helping people, ourselves, you know, students, administrators, and the surrounding community, to design their lives to be really, really satisfying and energizing and happy.
And what about you, Kristin?
So our psych club already has so many good things going on. We have some really strong students who are assuming leadership roles, planning some really exciting events, independent of us, even before we were here. They worked with some of the former faculty and had really good experiences. So we want to continue the work that has been established and continue the work that the students are invested in, but also continue to diversify, so meeting the needs of the community. So a lot of our students stay in this area. Some don't, so being able to meet the needs of all of our psychology club students in a way that makes sense. So offering more opportunities in our lab that we have set up. So talking about maybe psychological testing or implementing those counseling skills with a pseudo client. So being able to start to implement some of the things that they might want to see in practice, because especially as some of our students start to get into the upper level courses, they really start to develop a sense of maybe what they would like to do with the psychology degree, because it is such a useful, utilizable degree.
And I think that's a great point, because I've heard students say, well, what can I do with a bachelor's degree in psychology? And they think, well, I have to go to graduate school. Well, in reality, that's not true. As a matter of fact, our HR director has an undergraduate degree in psychology. So it opens the field for so many different areas. So that's exciting to see the opportunities that will avail themselves. And we know we have a chemical dependency problem in our area. So that's another opportunity. I know we have CDCA counseling and some other things that will help people be marketable when they complete their degree here, if they choose not to go on for a doctorate or a master's degree.
So Kristin, you and Brian both mentioned the students you've interacted with so far. What has surprised you the most about the students that you've met so far at Rio?
Yeah, I have really been nothing but impressed with our students. We have, you know, students who are still in the traditional high school setting for most of the day. And then we have students who are coming back at, you know, 40, 50 with families, juggling a lot of diverse roles and still being able to put in quality work and defining what is important to them, defining what their educational vision is. So I think the resiliency piece, so even in the face of some challenging maybe circumstances, our students still show up, our students still put quality work in, and so I think that's inspiring to me.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, along the same vein, I'm really impressed with how open students seem to be to learning new material, how excited they seem to be about learning and applying the new material. Have just seen just incredibly heartwarming interactions from students in class. A lot of my classes are discussion-based, and so many students bring up different things that they're wishing for, that they're struggling with, and other students just pop right in and they're open to talking about it, open to connecting people to other people that might be useful to them in terms of job aspirations, in terms of living a better life, reducing their stress. So just been really impressed with how open people's hearts are here and how focused they all seem to be on making their lives better.
We are maybe a different population than what you've come from, Brian, in that we're more the Appalachian population. So you may have seen a bit of a difference with our students. Not all of our students are from this region, but some are. But one thing about the Appalachian population is they typically have a pretty good work ethic.
Yeah.
So you may be seeing the students are actually digging in and
Yeah.
willing to go that extra mile to learn what it is you're wanting them to learn in their classes.
I've already seen some of that. Yeah.
So what's something the students always want to know all about? We ask our students to tell us about them, but what is something you could tell our viewers that really might surprise us about each of you?
Want me to go first?
You're up.
Okay, so I do a lot of talking in front of people. So as an educator, I'm in front of groups. I do some side consulting where I go into organizational development stuff with certain clients. And one of the top things that I think people are excited about, because I have a trouble now being quiet in front of people, I really love talking in front of people, is that when I first got into college, I had what I think is pretty, if it wasn't, it was bordering on a phobia of speaking in front of people. And so one of the things that my own college journey helped me to do was not only to overcome this fear, but to actually really love what it is that I at first feared. And it's one of the things that I like to talk with students a lot about, because a lot of students come in with certain kinds of fears, and I think it's helpful for them to know that you can turn your fears into your passions. So that's a little fun fact about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kristen?
Something that might be surprising, maybe not, but I'm also a certified yoga instructor. So I did a 200-hour training which focused on ways in which, so for me, yoga is finding ways to take care of myself. And so I'm very interested in not just talking about self-care, but implementing it in my own life. So modeling it first, which I have not always been good at. And then taking that to the community. So I offer monthly donation classes. So if you have no money to give, you just come and bring your energy. And but we collect money for different organizations that benefit our area, basically. So one was Passion Works. So a lot of these are Athens-based. One of them was the Gathering Place, so a communal space for folks who are dealing with pervasive mental illness. So I think that piece of self-care would be something that's important in my life.
I think that's important, as you said, to model too, because I think sometimes students are so busy, and it seems like I've been in higher ed for a number of years, and I'm seeing the student population changing a bit in that our students are juggling so much. They're juggling families, many of them, they're juggling work, they're juggling school, and they may have other stressors as well. So if we can model that and actually help our students learn to take care of themselves, I think it will be to their advantage and should help them to be more successful in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some of our first generation students have challenges, and then some of our residential students, and I don't know if you've encountered any of those students yet, but this is week 2 away from home. That's a big step for some of our students.
Mm-hmm. A lot of stress.
So you've been here at Rio. Kristen, you've been here and you've come back. Brian, you've been here with us now 2 weeks for classes. We're starting week 2. So what have you found about Rio that maybe you hadn't anticipated, or maybe it's a little different than where you've been before? Or maybe there's nothing.
Yeah, well, I'll just be kind of repeating myself, but one of the things that brought me to Rio that continuously impresses me is this sort of family feel, this open-hearted sort of feel. I've been at a lot of schools where there's a lot of attention to hierarchy and power and control types of things. And one of the things that I really enjoy is just feeling like we're all a bunch of equals, you know, doing the jobs that we need to do to be helpful to ourselves and others, back to that H2O acronym. So one of the things that isn't surprising to me, because it was one of my major decision points to come here, meeting all of the people that I met, is it just really felt more like a constellation of equals who were connected to each other rather than a hierarchy of people who were trying to do power and control types of things.
Wonderful.
So that's the big thing that brought me here and continues to impress me and make me feel really good about my decision to come.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm a student. I'm trying to decide what I want to be when I grow up, and that's not actually completely false. I still haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm in your psychology class. You're my faculty members. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. Convince me that I want to major in psychology, and convince me why psychology is even important for me to take.
Psychology is everywhere. But I think I would first look at what your interests are. So if you are not interested in psychology, I will not push you in that direction, because I don't know that you'll be able to be successful because you're not intrinsically motivated to do it, right? So first we're going to see what you're interested in, and maybe you'll say, I'm not really sure because I just came out of high school and I don't have a lot of experience. So I think that's where we start to talk about what don't you like. People usually know what they don't like. And setting up situations where you might be able to shadow, or if psychology sounds like something that we keep coming back to and I can convince you, or you can convince yourself that that's where you want to be, being able to connect you with people in the field. So I'm interested in school psychology, but I don't really know what that means or looks like. So we have school psychologists in our area that we can connect our students to so they can get a flavor for what the day-to-day looks like. I think it's important to make informed decisions. For most people, college is not free. It's an investment in time, so we want to make it worth our students' while and allow them to be as autonomous as possible in making their decisions, but also supporting them. So if they need questions answered, or if they need just someone to be a sounding board, that's kind of what we provide.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I totally agree with Kristin. I wouldn't want to convince somebody to necessarily do something, but if I do find that they have a passion like we do in psychology, I would want them to know all the different things that are associated with psychology and all the different roads they can take in terms of career. Like you said, Donna, there is, for some reason, this myth out there that you can't do that much with an undergraduate degree, but like Kristin said, psych is everywhere. One of the things I tell students is there's never a moment you're not dealing with psychology. Even when you're asleep, it's possible you're dreaming, and even that is something that we study, you know. So the big thing that I try to get across to students is that there are so many things that you can do with psychology. You can be so versatile. When you think about psychology, it's the study of the human mind and human behavior. And where are we not dealing with the human mind and human behavior? So another thing I would like students to know, maybe I'll turn the question around a little bit. If they're interested in psych, but somehow they got this myth that you can't do anything with psych, I would like to debunk that myth and talk with them about all the different things you can do, from industrial organizational psychology to counseling psychology to cognitive psychology to research to all kinds of different things. And it's one of the things I talk about with students a lot. One of the reasons why I've had so much fun in my own career is because of psychology and its versatility. I've been able to do a bunch of different things.
I thought it was interesting when you said that people maybe don't understand psychology or don't think that that's important, because I used to teach mental health nursing. So we actually went into mental health facilities and we cared for patients who were experiencing problems in that area. But I would have students who would absolutely hate mental health nursing. And one of their famous quotes was, "I can't wait till this semester's over because I will never have to deal with a psych patient again." And I said, if you happen to be in the emergency department, you will. If you happen to have a patient with a bad diagnosis, you will. If you happen to have a patient whose family member's passing away, you will. And I just continued to give example after example. It's everywhere. It's in everything that we do, in nursing, in any kind of health care. I would say in education, and that's Lindley's area. Lindley could speak more to that than I. But if you think that you'll never use psychology, then you must be going to be living in a vacuum away from people, and even not being aware of yourself and your own thoughts, feelings, and attitudes.
Yeah, and even if that's happening, you're still dealing with the psychology of being in a vacuum and what that's like. Yeah, you can't get away from it.
Do you see that in education too,
Yes, I do
Lindley?
see that a lot. And that's what I think is very important in our education field, is we get our students out in our schools so soon, and that really helps them actually be able to see what it's like to be a teacher. Something I thought about when you were sharing about if Donna was a student, you were convincing. In October, we will have our advising begin for next semester, and both of you will be assigned advisees, and that's going to be really, really important when you are talking to the students, because some students may want, after one semester, they want to get out of psychology. And I think both of you have a lot of experience already that will be very beneficial to share to our students when you start doing that in October.
I think you're going to be given some training here really soon too on advising, but I do believe you've been doing some advising too. I know I've walked down the hall and I've seen students in your offices, so I know you're interacting with students now and talking to students about maybe life goals and directions. And probably in your classes as well. And you're teaching general psych, right, Brian? What
Yeah.
else are you teaching?
2 sections of general psych, 1 section of memory and cognition,
Which involves?
which involves basically everything that has to do with what you're doing with your mind. So remembering, thinking, problem solving, which is another thing that kind of relates to what we were talking about before. Psych is everywhere. Life is a series of problems, and we want to study how high-level problem solvers solve their problems and help people to do that. And then social psychology, which is yet another field that just sort of proves what we've been saying here. You can't get away from psychology. The impact of groups on individuals.
Kristen, what are you teaching this semester?
Yeah, so I'm teaching a couple sections of human growth, a couple sections of general psych. I'm teaching a practicum course, and I'm also teaching counseling skills, which is my wheelhouse. So looking at how we use specific therapeutic modalities when treating clients. So kind of real world, where the rubber meets the road skills.
You both mentioned a little bit about when you work with students and allowing them to have the opportunity in your lab or elsewhere of interacting with patients before they're actually maybe interacting with people in a therapeutic way. And I know our listeners may or may not be aware that we have a new simulation center. And I don't believe you have gotten the opportunity to see that center yet. But we're calling it a simulation center because it's interdisciplinary. So I'm excited to think about our psychology students coming in and utilizing that area where we do have human simulators. So they are life-size simulators. And you can go into the control room and you can actually speak through a microphone, and it is as though that simulator is speaking to the student. So as you plan your curriculum, you may want to think about how that simulation center might play into some of the activities that you do with your students. It's a really great learning experience in a safe environment, so we can allow students to make mistakes. We can video the student if we choose, and then we can go into a room and play the video back and process with the student what happened. What did you say that worked well? What should you have maybe said differently, etc. And we plan on using that across social work, psychology, nursing, allied health, and then eventually we would like to broaden it into the entire university and be creative as to how we're utilizing those opportunities. So just a word of if you want to take a look at the center, I can take you down and you can take a look at it. And then you may think about ways you can incorporate your students in that area.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So we have our students always set goals. What maybe is a goal that you have for each of yourselves for this semester here at Rio?
For myself, familiarizing myself with my students, especially the students who are moving into, or they're in their senior year, moving into their upper level courses, to try to get them prepared for the next step. So that's one of my goals, whether that be graduate school, the job market, and then also to start to look at how we as psychology faculty can also be of service to other departments. So if we're talking about education, so maybe we talk about homelessness or adverse childhood experiences and how they may impact the day-to-day of our teachers, or maybe chatting with our nurses about maybe some similar things. So really getting more familiar with each department and kind of infusing a little bit of ourselves throughout.
Brian?
Yeah, this is something I actually already talked with Kristen and Donna about. One of the things I'm really excited about is somebody with both a counseling background, and I've done some industrial organizational psychological work, which is basically helping organizations to get what they want done and helping people with their motivation, morale, and productivity. Really interested in talking with whoever wants to talk with me about how we can help ourselves be happy, be energized, do our jobs well, and also be really satisfied. So just talking with administrators, with educators, and students about how they can integrate the science of psychology into whatever the heck it is they're doing, so they can do it really, really well and have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, I'm really happy that both of you have joined us. I know that we've got students who are really excited about the new faculty members. I've heard buzzes of excitement, and I know students are going to be excited to meet you. And then I believe there's a psychology club picnic next week, so you'll have an opportunity again to meet the club and talk to them about some of the wonderful things they're doing. I know that I believe each of you are going to be a guest speaker at a psychology club meeting to share information about your areas of expertise. And we enjoy having those kinds of meetings and having more students join the club. So I'm hoping that if anybody is out there listening and you have an interest in joining the psychology club, you can either talk to Brian, Kristen, or Shannon Dalton. She's the president. And I know that they would be happy to have you join the psychology club and talk to Brian and Kristen more about the psychology program at Rio. It's an excellent program with wonderful, wonderful faculty.
Yeah, and I would just like, again, to extend, the warmest welcome to you. We're so glad to have both of you here on campus, and Donna and I are here for both of you anytime that we can help you any way whatsoever.
So thank you for coming on and joining us, and we may be asking you to come back in a year or two and share with us where the program has gone under your guidance, and we enjoyed talking with you today. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Voice of Rio Grande with the Deans.
Thank you.